So what are we going to talk about? The first thing is I'm gonna address why we're even having a webinar. There's a lot of things that we could have a webinar about in a Q&A session, but so why are we talking about this one? Next, we're going to define what we mean by artificial intelligence. Then I'm going to introduce you to our 7 principles for AI at Enlightium. We did send this to you in an email, so you could search for this in your email address, in your inbox, and you can find that document. I really encourage you, if this is a topic that interests you, whether you're really excited or whether you don't want anything to do with it, I would encourage you to go read that document. It's something that we put a lot of prayer into, and it'll inform you a lot about the way that we're thinking through these things. We're going to talk about some benefits and some risks of AI. We're going to talk about kind of where we're going from here as a school and as an organization, and I will briefly go over some examples of ways that we're currently considering utilizing AI-powered tools. Okay, so that's where we're headed, and hopefully I'm going to respect your time as best I can. I hope to be done with my presentation in 20-25 minutes, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. Okay, so why are we talking about artificial intelligence at all? A few things. Number one, as you probably know, there are a lot of diverse opinions around the world and even in our school body, because our families come from all over the world, and we won't pretend that every single person is completely aligned with how they view things. And so we got some diverse opinions. And the second reason is that there is a great potential for enhancing the experience of our students with tools that are powered by AI. And so we don't want to ignore that fact, but at the same time, there are a lot of risks for the misuse of AI. And so we want to be careful that we mitigate that for ourselves as an organization, but also that we help equip students, because there's a lot of risk for misuse by students as well. We need to equip them with the tools and the knowledge to avoid that. And then the last piece is that AI is pervasive in every field, including education, including Christian education. So we really think it's an important topic. We can't ignore it. We need to discuss it, and so that's why we're having this webinar today. And we've been talking about it internally a lot. So what do I mean by artificial intelligence? I have a really long definition here. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but there's a couple things I will point out. Artificial intelligence refers to computer systems that are taught to automate tasks normally requiring human agency. So that's a big piece. It's automating something that would generally take a human to do, or historically. And specifically, when we're talking about generative AI, that means it's creating something. This technology can produce new content such as text, images, videos, music, based on complex patterns from the training data. Okay, so that's what I mean when we're talking about artificial intelligence, and specifically generative AI. Okay. So some examples, I said this a second ago, but I just give you some examples of AI. It's pretty pervasive, and it's been around for a while. Ways that you are probably, unless you are really, really careful, you're probably interacting with AI in some way. Online and in-store shopping. So anytime that you're shopping and you get suggested things that you might be interested in, that is driven by algorithms, artificial intelligence, based on your shopping habits. Robotic tractors and precision agriculture, warehouse fulfillment, credit card fraud protection. If you ever travel and you get an alert or maybe your credit card is turned off, or you get an alert saying that you might have potential fraud on because you were traveling, that's AI powered. Insurance rates to help determine, you can blame AI that men have higher insurance rates than women. Well, maybe you could blame men's driving habits, but you can also hold AI accountable for finding that and saying, hey, we should probably charge them more. NASA images, text to speech, foreign language translation. Google Translate is powered by AI. And then mapping and navigation. This is one where when you're going on a trip and you're using maps and it tells you to reroute because there's been a wreck or something that's slowing down the traffic, that's AI powered. So these are just a few examples. of things that have been around for a while. AI is in there. It's kind of in our lives. It's in pretty much every industry. It's not going away as far as we can tell. So that's why it's really important that we deal with it as an educational organization and as Christians. And what's really interesting is that it's not new. So why are we just now talking about it? And really, what's really changed is that with large language models, so ChatGPT, you're probably aware, you may have even used it or at least heard of it. It takes a AI powered tool and puts it in the hands of just individuals like us. Google and Amazon and Apple, all these huge organizations, they've been using these tools for years and years and years. But now you have it in the palm of your hand, and that changes things because now you have access to an extremely powerful tool. And so that means it's even available in Christian education. Your students probably, many of them have interacted with an AI tool already. And some of them may be really savvy and have figured out how to leverage it for some good use. And so that's why we need to talk about it now. It's not new, but it's newly available. And there are some new things that the technology is changing pretty fast. Okay. So now I just want to introduce our 7 principles. So to give you a little backstory, all of our internal dialogue around AI started pretty much where most schools started. When ChatGPT was released, suddenly teachers were experiencing students using AI tools to write their papers. And as a virtual school, that puts us in a very unique position because we can't do what some schools did at that time. They said, you know what, we're not going to allow students to write papers outside of the classroom anymore. We're going to make them all come and sit at a desk, paper, pencil, old school style, and we will make sure that they're not using, ChatGPT to write a paper. And that is not an option for us. And so we were like, okay, we've got to address this. And so we really started praying and researching and thinking how we're going to do this. And it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that we were going to need to establish a biblical philosophy of technology, because we really wanted to ask, what does Scripture tell us about technology? How should we feel about it? Because AI, ChatGPT is just a tool right now, but if we just address every tool as it comes along, we're never going to get anywhere. We've got to have some guiding principles, and so we came up with that through a lot of prayer and a lot of study of Scripture. And out of that, we landed on 7 principles of AI at Enlightium. And what these are intended to be are guiding principles for us to make sure that we stay on track to what we want as a school and what we feel like God's leading us as a school. So I'm going to walk you through these. Like I said, I can't spend a ton of time on them. I'm going to try to explain each one of them as we go, but there is a document. You can find it in your inbox. Go look it up, and I encourage you to read through it for a little bit more, a little more thorough overview of them. Okay, so here's the 7 altogether, and I'm going to go through each one of these. All right. So number 1, faith and values first. We use AI in alignment with existing Enlightium policies and regulations. So the first thing that we decided was that if we are going to leverage AI tools as an organization, we need to make sure that they align with our faith and values. So there's some key documents here that we're always going to be referring back to. Number 1, our statement of faith, our philosophy of Christian education, and our Enlightium biblical philosophy of technology. All of those are available to you either in the knowledge base or in the handbook. Okay, so I hope that you're familiar with those. Those are guiding documents for us. Anytime that we're going to create a new policy or take a new step in a direction, we need to make sure that they align with those guiding documents for us. Okay, so faith and values first. We're always going to put our faith and our values first before we make any decisions or before we ever leverage a tool. It needs to align with that. Number 2, purposeful use. The idea here is that if we're going to use AI, it needs to help our school and its stakeholders to achieve some mission or some goal. The short way to put this is, we're not interested in technology for the sake of technology. We don't want to just go out and get tools just because it's shiny and it looks fun and looks cool. We think, if it needs to have a purpose. It needs to be accomplishing some sort of objective. And so we're going to be very purposeful if we're going to utilize a tool such that's AI powered, or really any technology, truly. The third is informed use. And this is something we're going to talk a little bit about here in a little while, and why I think it's really important for parents to be here and hearing this. We need to educate our faculty, our staff, and our students about artificial intelligence. It is not okay for us to blindly utilize tools or implement any type of strategy or approach at our school if we don't really know how it works. And this is also really important for your students. And so I noticed, and I'm sure some of our parents here, you probably have some pretty strong feelings against the use of AI. And I will say that I have a lot of respect for that. One of the things that we want to make sure parents know is that your student, even if that's ultimately how you land on your values, your student's going to need to be able to think through what they believe and what you believe, and really be able to articulate that. And so we need to inform our students, need to understand, what is this? What are the ethics behind it? What is scripture behind it? Like, what are the problems or the bias or some of the concerns, which I'll talk about here in a minute? Those things are really, really important for them to understand. They have to be informed. And so one of the things I would encourage parents, especially if this is you, where you're like, hey, we don't want anything to do with it, don't let that prevent you from being informed about it. It's still really important to be extremely well informed so that you can articulate where you stand on these issues, okay? So all that to say is, we're going to educate ourselves internally, and we want our family and our students to be educated as well. 4, forward thinking. We are going to be exploring the opportunities and addressing the risks. So we have always been, as a virtual school, looking for ways to leverage technology to the betterment of our students, our educational processes, whatever we can do to make the experience of our students, the educational outcomes, I would say the experience of our employees, all of that. We're looking for ways to improve that and continuously improve it. So we are forward thinking. We are searching out solutions, but we also are making sure that we are addressing any risks that might be present with that. Number 5 is Christ-like use. So this actually kind of goes back to the faith and values piece, but this is specifically geared around the academic integrity. To be honest, most of the conversations, at least early on in the world of education, when it came to AI, really revolved around academic integrity. How are students using, allowed to use, not allowed to use AI? How will that ultimately affect the learning outcomes? Will it undermine their learning? Is it useful for learning? All of those questions, I couldn't even answer every one of them today, but what I can say is, we want to see academic integrity in our students and in our employees. Many of our employees, myself included, are in school right now ourselves, and so we're dealing with this as well, to make sure that if we're going to leverage a tool, we need to be careful that we're not undermining our own learning. Your students have to do the same thing, and make sure that they're maintaining academic integrity. Okay, so that's one of the things we're going to strive for. So a lot of what you're going to be seeing, and you probably already saw this year, is policies and procedures that we've set up internally to ensure the academic integrity of our students' work. All right. Number 6, people first. This is a really, really important one that we spent a lot of time talking about. Based on our view of the image of God, we do not want to see any AI technology replace humans and relationships between students and teachers and staff and parents. Anything that we do needs to support human creativity, support human relationships, support human reasoning, not replace it. There are organizations out there that are very quickly replacing human interaction with AI interaction, and we want to be people first. And our thoughts are, if we are going to utilize a tool, it is so that we have more interactions with our students, not less. And so that is a really important value for us, a principle for us. And then number 7 is always discerning. This basically just means that it is not okay for us to make a decision and just leave it and not come back to it. We have to audit, we have to monitor, we have to evaluate every tool that we use. And we do this anyways because organizations that build these tools, their policies change, their data privacy policies change. They switch because they are primarily focused. Many of these organizations are primarily focused on their bottom dollar, and so we have to keep going back and making sure that our tools that we're using are getting us the outcomes that we really want and what we had intended to achieve when we first implemented it, but also make sure that we're still remaining faithful to our own values and our policies. So that's the 7. So I'll go back up real quick here. Let me go back. You can kind of see them all here together. These are our 7 guiding policies. So as we're going through our attempts to be forward thinking and think about how could we leverage technology, these are the things that we're always going back to. I would encourage you to become very acquainted with these things, because as a student body and as a group of parents and a group of employees, I've asked our employees to, hey, if you think that we're having a discussion and we're moving in a direction that goes against one of these 7 principles, I want you to bring it up and say, hey, don't forget, we need to make sure we're people first. Hey, don't forget, we're going to be forward thinking. So the more our parents can be informed and aware of these principles, the more that we can work together to come up with solutions that are best for our students, for your students, but that also serve what we're trying to accomplish. So what does that mean? So how might you see AI at Enlightium? Things that it can help us do: personalized learning. It can help us differentiate instruction, increase student persistence. There are tools such as handwriting to digital, text to speech, speech to text, language translation. There are a lot of things that could really support students' learning, and there are a lot of tools that are already being created that are made available to teachers that are honestly excellent tools for learning and for teaching. Also, administrative tasks. This is not something parents would necessarily be aware of, but there are a lot of use cases for administrative tasks, data analysis for us, assessment for students, and then support for our English language learners. So there's a lot of things, ways that we envision this could be helpful to us and our student body and to our employees. What it's not displacing any jobs. It's not going to solve all of our problems. And we've got to be careful. It's not one more thing for our teachers to have to learn and leverage. And then the last one is, it's not a subject. We're not intending to teach a course on how to leverage AI. We did just recently start releasing a digital citizenship course, and it does address some things about artificial intelligence, but it's a much more broad course about being a digital citizen, a citizen in the age of technology, based on our Christian values. All right. Okay, let me check my time. All right, I'm gonna keep going. So there are some benefits and risks. I want to show this slide real quick, and this is what we've got to continue. This is why we're having the conversation. There are some benefits in utilizing AI-powered tools to develop content, such as curriculum or lesson plans, things like that, assessing student learning, personalized tutoring and personalized learning experiences, aiding in the creativity and the collaboration, and then administrative efficiency. So some of those things I've already mentioned, but there are some problems. There's a lot of misinformation. These tools do not always get it right. In fact, they often say things that are not true. And so that can be a problem. Also, academic dishonesty. Students can and have at Enlightium tried to leverage these tools to just not learn anything themselves and just be able to turn it in. So that's a problem. It can diminish student and teacher agency, right? So it can be a crutch, and we need to be careful about that. Also, there are data issues. These large language models collect a lot of data, so we have to be careful that we're not giving data over to an organization that may not protect it the way that it needs to be protected. This is also over-reliance on it can hurt our critical thinking, and there's a lot of societal bias. So, I mean, these large language models are trained, or the data that they're trained on is not often super diverse. And so sometimes you ask it questions and it may tell you things that has a bias in it. So we got to be careful with those types of things. So what are we going to do? I'm almost done here. What you can kind of expect, we have our administration team. We have been driving innovation, providing guidance, engaging in policy discussions, approving resources. Our principal's office, they've been having a lot of conversations with our teachers, talking with parents. Some of you probably have even spoken with the principal's office this year about AI and how it's affected students and how it's affected schoolwork. And so they're responsible for trying to implement our policies. Our IT director, Mr. Midkiff, he's been giving us a lot of technical guidance, reviewing software, authorizing access, and ensuring that we maintain a proper privacy and security of anything that we're utilizing. And then our teacher, at the end of the day, they'll be implementing whatever it is that they see fit in the classroom, as long as it aligns with our policy and our procedures that are kind of determined by our administration team. They also have to ensure academic integrity and ethical application. That's going to be a big one. It's already been a big one this year that has proved to be not a super easy task. And so we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So that's our roles. We've been mostly in stage one this year. As far as the stages go for how we would do this, we've been creating policies. We've been trying to address immediate risks so that we can stop any undermining of learning. That's where you probably saw an email earlier this year about how we're going to respond to students that we suspect are utilizing AI. But that's just the beginning. That's kind of like putting out a fire. It's the tyranny of the urgent of what's right in front of us. After that, what we've been trying to do is facilitate organizational learning internally, and just thinking about small strategic things that we can implement internally to leverage tools carefully and responsibly. That's been happening. We've been working on these policy documents that we're releasing now, and we've had a lot of conversations internally. After that, really it just comes about looking strategically. Where do we want to go from here? How can we continually improve what we're doing, and revisiting any decisions that we previously made? Again, like I said in the beginning, the technology is changing incredibly fast, and so it's difficult for us to keep up, but we have to continue to pay attention so that we can stay on top of things. Okay, I just went through these 3 stages. So examples and demonstrations. This would be really quick to give you an idea of these aren't things that we're necessarily doing, but things that could potentially help us in the future. Many of you are probably familiar with the Progress Department. Their job is to send you communication on a weekly basis to tell you how your students doing, how they're keeping up with their coursework. AI-powered tools can actually help us identify, maybe predict which students might fall behind based on certain metrics in their schoolwork. And so there's some data analysis that we can be doing in the future, so that we can intervene with students before they fall too far behind. We can only do so much with our current system. So if we see a student has fallen 2 weeks behind, for example, we can send an email or we could send a chat, but with some of these AI-powered tools, we can actually probably identify it a lot sooner so that we can intervene a lot sooner and it'd be a lot more effective interventions. That's one thing that we're considering in our Progress Department. In curriculum, we can have help with drafting content, differentiating curriculum for different age levels, reducing the reading level, for example, for struggling readers. Generating assessment questions. That's something we've experimented with, and then even considering personalized learning pathways in the future based on a student's interest. There are a lot of opportunities that we could maybe make each student to have a unique learning experience based on things that they're interested in or based on things that engage them. So those are things we're throwing around, ideas we're discussing internally. Teaching and instruction. A lot of this you've probably seen. Being able to plan and draft up classroom materials, working on assessment, how we can assess the mastery level of students with certain tools. An endless Q&A. This is actually an idea of having an AI-powered tool that students could ask and get answers from, back and forth, maybe even getting examples. Hey, basically I can work out an example and get immediate feedback. Those are things that our teachers aren't able to do because they're only one person and they have many students. So that's something we've talked about. And then remediation and skill sharpening. There are some ways that we can utilize AI to do that. All right. So that was quick. I felt like I was talking really fast, and it still went 29 minutes. And so it just goes to show just how much has to be discussed. So I see there's a few questions in the Q&A. I'm about to get there. I will go ahead and just, again, for some of you that are joining late, we're now going into a point where we can answer some questions. At the bottom of the screen, you can click on Q&A. You can type in your question, and we will do our absolute best to answer them. So let me take a look here. Okay, good question from Brandy. He says, have you established procedures for both teachers and parents, students to follow in the event of a student being accused of using AI to cheat? Yes, we have. So our principal's office has created some steps to follow when a student has been suspected of using AI. I do want to say, and this is a very nuanced, it's a difficult situation because the vast majority of the times it is not possible to be absolutely sure. And that is something that our teachers are wrestling with every single day, because if you're absolutely sure, then your conversation can go a particular way. If you're not quite sure, teachers are concerned that they don't want to get falsely accused, and that has happened. We've had parents reach out and say, hey, my student was accused of this, and I saw them write this paper. And teachers are keenly aware of how much strain that puts on a relationship between a teacher and a student, and between a teacher and a family. So we do have steps. Generally, it is to initially just connect with the student. Basically, we handle it the same way that we handle plagiarism. Plagiarism is a little bit easier to identify than AI-generated content, because plagiarism, when you're copying from something, we call them both plagiarism, but when you're just copying something verbatim, we can usually find it on the internet somewhere, turn it in, flags it and says, hey, this exists somewhere else. It was copied. AI-generated content, because it's generating it on the spot, it doesn't exist in its AI-generated form somewhere else. So unless they copied pieces of the AI-generated thing that reveals it, they don't always know. So they have to start off with a conversation. In Ignitia, we do have a tool that we've been utilizing to try to detect AI content generated, but it's not a perfect system. So we're still working that out. But they have conversations in Ignitia with the student. If it continues to happen and there's no solution, so if the student either says, no, I'm not using anything that's generating this content, or maybe they're doing it over and over again, then it's going to require a phone call to the parents, sometimes sooner than later. Just depends on, have they ever had these types of issues in the past? If they're an older student, say late middle school and high school, and it's their first time to have this type of deal, usually the students and the teachers can just have a conversation, and most of our students are really responsive to that, and they say, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I didn't realize that I was misusing this tool. Now I know better, which is another reason why our students need to be informed, because many of them don't know that the way they're using tools is undermining their learning, and it's academically inappropriate. So they will contact you. We do have a way that we log it internally, so that if it's happening across multiple classes, our principal's office is aware. I believe after 3 or 4 say logs of suspected AI use, the principal's office is alerted, and then they will reach out to the parents to have a conversation about that. I do want to emphasize that we want this to be a conversation. We do not want this to be a gotcha, try to slap on the wrist, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, because we're a virtual school. Well, 2 things. Because we're a virtual school, only the parents can really be, they're the most effective people to hold students accountable to the way that they do their work, more than our teachers and more than our principal's office. The second reason, because we're a Christian school, we absolutely believe that parents, it is your God-given authority to shepherd your children. And so we want to support you in that. We want to support you in the education of your children. But at the end of the day, we don't want to do it alone, because we think we believe that it's a something that God's given you. And so we need to support you. So we want it to be a conversation and relationship. So I know that's probably a little bit vague, but it is a conversation. So we're logging it. We're contacting the students. We're contacting the parents. So far, according to our principal's office and our faculty, most of those conversations have gone really quite well. So all I could say is if you do get a phone call or an email or a message regarding AI, I would invite you to invite a conversation with that teacher or the principal's office, and know going in that they're being extremely careful, and sometimes those conversations can be, difficult. So we understand that. So we're trying to approach it really carefully. Okay. Second question here is, what program platform do you use for language translation? I'm not sure what the question is here. So I don't think we have like an established platform or program that we're using for language translation. We are looking into, so for example, we're looking into some new LMS, and in our new LMS, we're specifically hoping for a platform that will translate any curriculum to many different languages to make it more accessible to some of our students, and maybe even open up more students to be able to attend our school that are not English language speakers. And also, most of the AI tools, ChatGPT is a good example, or Claude or Gemini, they will translate pretty much anything and do a really great job in translating from one language to the other. So if I didn't answer your question, maybe send it again, because I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there. Say, Randy, there's another question. It says, how are you going to mitigate the potential culture of teachers using an AI checker and being police officers versus students seen as criminals? Yes. This is a great question. And I think that's exactly what I didn't even see this question before, but I'll try to address it. That is exactly what we're trying to prevent. And that is exactly why we need parents to be really well informed and to be really engaged in your students' education. You know your kids better than anybody else. You, I hope, know their academic ability better than anybody else. And I would love to believe that our parents would read your student's paper or their answer and know right away that's not something that you wrote. And I could say that for my kids, and many of you probably could say that for your own children. And we need your support in doing that, because our teachers can't always tell. And so we don't want to be police officers, and we don't want to view students as criminals. So there's this fine balance. We're trying to uphold the integrity of our curriculum and the integrity of our academic objectives, also continuing to build really positive relationships with our students, but at the same time, making sure that we don't kind of accuse them of something they didn't do. So all I can really say is that is going to be something that we're going to continually work through. I agree. You mentioned Copy Leaks. Copy Leaks is the program that we've been testing. It is not it's not 99% accurate. I know they claim that, but the other thing to keep in mind is that some of the tools our students are using, and they're using it in a way that is generally acceptable in most fields, can be flagged by Copy Leaks. So I'll just give you an example. Many of our students use Grammarly. We actually, for years, have provided free premium Grammarly accounts to our students. Grammarly is AI powered, and Grammarly will make suggestions to you when you're writing for better words, or maybe, hey, you're using this word too often, or hey, you should reword your sentence like this. Grammarly, even on my emails, will say, hey, these 4 sentences look weird. You should rearrange them. And all I got to do is click accept, and all of it gets rearranged. That will get flagged by Copy Leaks. Even though I wrote that email completely from scratch and it's completely original, and Grammarly just made a suggestion for an improvement, that can get flagged by an AI detector. And that's the reason these conversations are so difficult, because we have to go in really asking a lot of questions of students. Hey, what kind of tools are you using? Because you may not even realize that, or maybe we don't realize that that's what got this flagged. And maybe that's not a big deal, but we've got to continue to evaluate the tools that are available and see if they're helpful. So one of the things that I can say is the way that we prevent that culture is a partnership between the school and the parents. That's how we do it. That you continue to build in your students good character and say, hey, be careful about the tools that you use. Be careful about the way that you use the things available to you to do your schoolwork, and be honest, right? If a teacher asks, just tell them. They're not out to get you. They're not out to try to, catch you and fail you. They just want to make sure that you're supported and that you're being informed. And I think, and I can speak for our teachers to say, they really are concerned about the students learning. And on top of that, we don't know how academic institutions are going to be accepting or denying AI going forward. And so let me just say, I'm currently getting my PhD, and the rule is in my university, you cannot use AI in any other way, anyway. And if you're ever suspected, you're automatically failed, right? That's pretty far from where Enlightium's at right now, where we're saying, hey, let's have a conversation. Maybe it was unintentional. Maybe it was intentional. Let's just kind of talk through it. But if students aren't informed and they end up at my university that I'm currently in, and they've been taught that, hey, it doesn't really matter and you can kind of use it to your however you like, that could be potentially problematic for them in the future. So we just want to avoid that. We want to have lots of conversations, and we're going to keep revisiting this as we go. I think universities are going to begin to come up with policies like this. Many of them already have. And so we're just trying to get ahead of the game as well as an institution, knowing that many of our students are going to go on to college, and they're going to have to hopefully have an informed viewpoint on artificial intelligence and know how to leverage tools in a responsible way. So that was the only 3 questions that we have. We do have about 20 more minutes. And so I'm just going to pause right here. I'm going to give it first, Dr. Robertson. Did I miss anything that you might want to just add in here?
No, that was excellent. I just want to reiterate that those 7 principles really are foundational to everything we do with AI and its use or use cases. We always are conscientious of those principles in everything we do. And I think, Thomas, you nailed that pretty clearly. And so thank you.
Awesome. What about you, Mr. Midkiff? You got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so just some thoughts about copy leaks and AI detection algorithms in general. The way the AI generates text is essentially it's statistically predicting what the next word or phrases in the sentence are based off of a large, enormous corpus of data that it's digested and processed into its neural networks. So AI, we've all been blown away by observing how it can write text at very high levels. And essentially what it's doing is it's producing statistical patterns in the text that have near flawless syntax and essentially patterns, even more subtle patterns that we can't even pick up as humans. And so CopyLeaks is using AI to scan a lot of AI output from platforms like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and detect those patterns so that it can give a high confidence rating as to how likely this is AI. And we all know when we've discussed this is that it's not 100% accurate output from Grammarly, as well as just students with really good writing and be potentially flagged as AI. But we all know to err is human, and we make subtle mistakes, grammatical mistakes in our writing all the time. And so we've come to a point, an interesting point in history in which good writing is almost suspect. And we have to make good judgments with what we have available. So we at Enlightium are using these tools as a tool, not as an automatic flagged as AI. This is AI. So we still have human judgment in place that's looking at this tool and going, okay, this has a likelihood of it being AI, and therefore we're going to assess and make judgments based off of the bigger picture, the teacher's interactions with the students, what they've seen the student produce and write before, as opposed to what all of a sudden their writing style has changed, things like that, indicators that we can work with. So we're not treating this as an automatic. It's giving us the answer. This is obviously AI. We're going with that. We're just using it as a tool to detect the likelihood of AI output because of those patterns it can detect. So hope that gives a little bit of clarity.
Well, that's very helpful. Thanks, David. I see a couple of you sent me some direct messages, and I'm just seeing them. So let me try to answer. One person just asked, how can one determine if AI has been used to formulate an answer or complete an assignment? I think David just gave a decent answer about that. One of the things for you parents, when you're paying attention, the biggest thing is just to look for work that is unusually outside of your students' normal academic writing ability. And I will tell you, AI uses certain words a lot. They use sometimes uses like the word delve. I've never seen the word delve used as much as it's used in AI. It's just like, let's delve into this. There are just certain phrases that those generators create. So just paying attention to, like, is this the type, does this sound like my student? And that's one of the things that I would encourage you to really talk to your students about, is that every student has a unique voice when it comes to the way that they're writing and the things that are important to them. And it's important that they learn to express that voice and not hand that responsibility off to somebody else or something else that can speak for them. So one of the things I've been saying is I just want our students to be so passionate about making sure that their own voice is heard, and the things they care about, and the way that they say things, that they maintain that and not hand it over to a computer. So hopefully that's helpful. One person did ask, somebody said, is it okay to use Grammarly for corrections? Yes, I would say you're going to have a hard time writing in any tool that doesn't have some sort of spell check, grammar check. I would say, but use it developmentally appropriate, right? So if you have a third grader and you're using something like that to help catch spelling mistakes, help catch maybe missing punctuation, that's probably okay. But if it's rewording entire paragraphs, I would stray away from that, especially in an academic setting. And if you're an adult and you're writing emails, that's a little bit different. That is one of the things we recognize internally. We've talked a lot about, is that there are different rules in academics than there are in the world of business and the working world. And there's certain things that you're not allowed to do when you're turning work in to be assessed. And so I would encourage you to make sure your students know, like, hey, maybe when you're writing an email to a friend, or maybe when you're writing, it's just like when you're texting your friends, you're allowed to do one thing, but you can't do that on your school assignments. And so it's in the same way, there are expectations in academics. So, let's see, going on down here. Okay. Going on down. Sorry, I've got a lot of great comments. Thank y'all for sending these in here. I had this suggestion. I'm going to pass this on to the principal's office. One parent said, I want to know the first time that you suspect AI instead of the third time. That's great feedback. I appreciate you saying that, and I will pass that on to the principal's office. And I think we would love to inform you right away. And I think we've just got to, number one, sometimes it's a matter of if it's happening so often, how often do I want to send this parent an email every time I suspect something? Because it, like David said, oftentimes it's a very weak, like, it's just like something that I think might be there, and I don't want to cause alarm unless I'm sure. So, but I admit there's a fine line there. So thank you for saying that. I will definitely pass that on. Looks like we have a question here. So somebody says, we use ChatGPT set with custom parameters relating to the curriculum and the capacity of an assistant to spell check, grammar check, as well as explain how to work out some math in further detail. Does any of this fall under misuse? The fact that you have set up your own custom GPT and that you are configuring it tells me that you probably are very responsible and careful in your use. So using it to spell check, grammar check, that's not any different than using Microsoft Word to do that. And there are a lot of tools out there that will actually help you walk through math problems. So that's not an issue. The big thing is that if you're involved in your students' school, you're going to know if it's undermining their learning. You're going to know if their use of a calculator is preventing them from learning the math, or if it's helping them kind of launch them into a more, difficult understanding of mathematics. So use your discernment. That's what I would encourage you to do. And that sounds like you are definitely discerning carefully. So just pay attention to how your students are relying on the tools that are available to them. And I think we have one more here. Oh, nope, I already answered that one. So, okay. Well, I suggest that we just go ahead and wrap up. If there's no more questions, and I don't see any more in my chat, we can wrap up early, about 10 minutes early. I just want to say again, thank you to all the parents that are here. I really appreciate your interest in this topic. It's immensely important to us internally as we're kind of working through this. We encourage your feedback. We would love to hear from you on these topics. You're welcome to email. You could post on the app. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with us, but we'd love to hear from you more about this. There will be a lot more conversation going forward. Like I said, we're going to continue to revisit these decisions and how we go forward. And again, get informed, get comfortable with the 7 principles. And from me, I invite you, if you think we pushed up against one of these 7 principles and got derailed, by all means, please let us know. We want to hear it. That's why we set the principles, and that we've asked our employees to do that as well. So, yeah, we just invite your feedback as always. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will talk soon.